I think that needs to be a part of our initiative. Not everybody, a guy like Chase Elliott would love to go run late model races at any late model track in the country instead of going to do an appearance. That's what pushes his buttons. A guy like Jimmy Johnson has no real interest in running any extra races, like a guy like Jeff Gordon didn't. But if we could find that niche for, like I would love to build the K&N West Series back to what it needs to be, and that enthusiasm, and get to the right racetracks, and help those kids, because for me it was an eye-opener last year when I went to Sonoma and saw the impact that running that race had on the competitors in the series, and the fans will sometimes say, well, you're cherry picking. Well, I can tell you nobody would know who Will Rogers is if it wasn't for us running that race and being a part of that, and having him on the radio show and bringing him to the pit box the next day, and these guys taking him in. So if we can shed some light on those particular series and really build them back to where they need to be. And I have so many thoughts on this that, that's just for a different conversation. So, building everything from the grassroots up. I love the grassroots part of our sport. This guy has been a part of grassroots racing from the sprint cars and midgets. And, I've been mad at Sperber here for a couple years now because he won't have the K&N cars come race here because it doesn't help his budget. But in the end, without those grassroots fans and those grassroots people coming and being able to race here, whether it fits your budget or not, 10 years from now, you better hope you have your ass some people that'll sit in the stands up here and wanting to watch these races that are at these short tracks, because those are your hardcore fans, and those are your grassroots fans. And one of the best things that happened for racing, it's not just about NASCAR, but one of the best things that used to happen for racing was when we had the Copper Classic here. We had midgets, we had sprint cars. It didn't matter how many people sat in the grandstands, but as competitors, those guys, this was their Daytona. This, on the West Coast, this was what we thought our Daytona 500 was. This is where everybody wanted to race. And, it's kicking those guys low on the K&N West Series that they don't get to come and race at this particular racetrack because of the fact that there's a little bit of a pissing contest between, a budget and what is right and what is wrong from a sanctioning fee side on trucks and Xfinity. So they cut the K&N guys out. Cutting the grassroots side of things out is not the right way to do things. Those guys they just want to race. And this is a crown jewel race for those guys. So, it's just the thought process for me is broken. And, when I look at our hardcore fans, they're all sitting at those short tracks and they're mad. They're mad because you don't have a Winston who is supporting these short tracks like they used to. Winston used to infuse so much money into all these short tracks around the country, and that's what kept it going, and that's what kept people showing up to these racetracks, because there was point funds. But when we had the Copper Classic, you had TV out here, and everybody could get sponsors, and they'd show up to race, and they'd come from all over the country, and they'd show up out here, and there'd be, I don't even know how many sprint cars and midgets, but there'd be 70, 80 Southwest Tour cars, and you'd have a truck race, and it'd lead off the year. So I don't know. I have a lot of things that I think about. I love the grassroots side of things, though. Yeah.
Bob Bear was probably the best at that. I mean, you guys that follow this every week, you guys remember Bob Bear used to bring in series that I promise you he lost his butt on, and he paid probably more guys tow money to come race at his racetrack than he ever brought back in revenue, but he realized how important it was to the region and how important it was to the teams and drivers. And like Kevin mentioned, the Copper Classic, I ran second to Mike Bliss here, and that one race got me a huge opportunity to drive for some really big teams. And, now you don't have things like that. But we can afford to spend $170 million to move the front stretch from there over to there for, I still have no idea what the hell the reason for that is.
$300,000 doesn't seem like that big
So,
deal.
yeah, I guess we probably can't afford to run any support races here that cost the track some money.
We'll go to Dominic.
I got it going with the racing experts in ESPN Albuquerque for Rodney. Had someone told you a few weeks ago that your driver would win 3 races in a row, what would you have said?
I don't know. Like I said last week, you just don't know going into these seasons where you stand as a